One love, one love. One love, one love.
Now this one has to be our original reggae vibes. And this is a question you have to ask the world. So do you really care? Do you really care about the world and a better tomorrow? Do you really care? Do you really care? Who's gonna set an example to follow? Do you really care? Do you really care? Who's gonna wake up and set an example? Do you really care? Do you really care? One question I have to ask. So do you care about the youth who goes to bed without no food? Can't tell one was the last time they feel another mood. Do you care if they walk around dead in the noon? Care about that love you need to include? Do you care about the people on the street without a home? You care about the children and not just your own. Do you care about the planet? Do you care about the thing? I know you clearly hear me asking, but do you really care? Do you really care about the world and a better tomorrow? Do you really care? Do you really care? Who's gonna set an example to follow? Do you really care? Ooh, who's gonna set an example to follow? Do you really care? Do you really? Let me ask you a question, gentlemen. Why so many conflicts in the human hemisphere? You wanna be patriotic, but it's obvious to clear. The leaders of the world, them not have no love to share. Grown men can't resolve problems for many years. Them draw full of kids because war declare. Now at 18 it's legal to kill a man in warfare, but you have to be 21 if you wanna drink a beer. Well, I pollute that atmosphere. Do you really care? Do you really care about the world and a better tomorrow? Do you really care about the world and a better tomorrow? Do we really care? Do we really care? Who's gonna set an example to follow? Do we really care? Do we really care? One more question. Come make we fight for a greater future now and not later. There's something that the whole of we pray. Me see too much violators, send them up in papers, up and away the whole of them to play. I heard some talking this, I heard some talking that, but let me see you put your mouth where your heart is at. Can you defend the fact, and will you have my back without you looking forward after licking a plaque? Can you tell yourself it's a genuine act of love and nothing twisted? And will you show concern till your world stop turn? Can I depend on you, my brethren? Do you really care? Do you really care? To down some blood massive strain. Do you really care? Hey, this is Screechy Dan saying what's up to the world. And I'm a big up the Latin market, big up Mexico, big up Puerto Rico, Colombia, and the rest of the Costa Rica and all over the world. Girls, you look so sharp anytime you pass in your pom-pom shots. Whoa. I say, girls, you touch my heart anytime you pass in your pom-pom shot. Yeah. Big up Jaime Davidson to the world. Reggaeton founding father. Salute. Actually, there was earthquake, and baby quake was a stem of earthquake. So we are name it baby quake. And but the initial meeting point, the memory cannot process it right now, but I know it's a very long time ago. So, and I used to sit down and write lyrics like every day in the park, like with 9 to 5, and that was the first person I heard like chat the reggae chanting and flip it in Spanish, you know what I mean, which was mind-blowing. It was amazing because I never heard nobody spit dancehall in Spanish before. Way before El General, way before everybody else who I'm hearing about. So all the younger reggaeton artists, enough respect to y'all because y'all doing your thing and y'all broaden that culture. But do some research, find out who Jaime Davis is, tip your hat to him, salute him. Jaime, enough respect. Screechy Dan said that. This was like, I'm talking about 1984, 85. That's way back with kids. Yep, and he always have like great intention with the music. I mean, doing parties, doing a lot of parties with the sound system. Baby Quake from Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island, Philadelphia, out of state. You're just running around with I mean, doing all we can to promote unknown acts and give a lot of unknown reggae artists a chance to be heard at the time. I mean, I may had a passion for that. Oh yes, man, I have to big up all the people in Mexico to embrace the culture of reggaeton, knowing that it's a stem from the reggae dancehall, and much love to the people in Puerto Rico as well. I mean, and all the Spanish-speaking region of the world. Enough respect and thank y'all to embracing such a culture.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you a little story about my brethren named Jaime Davidson. He was one of the first reggae Spanish artists to ever do reggaeton and put reggae into Spanish on dancehall rhythm. Back in 1986, he was one of the first, you know. Me and Jaime go way back, but they usually call him Ringo. You know, one of the roughest artists out of Panama, you know. Still want to say big up to all the Mexicans and all the people who support reggaeton, you know, and carry it to a different level. Enough respect. Mr. Naturally says so. Yeah. Baby Quake. Why? Well, Baby Quake was a sound back in the early 80s where we resigned with Jaime and Flyer and Culture Gary. I mean, there was a lot of various artists from all different nationalities, from Jamaica, from Guyana, Haiti. Everybody was on that sound as an artist, performing and doing what they do best within the reggae era, you know. Baby Quake was a big sound system. First it was Earthquake. It branched off from, Baby Quake branched off from Earthquake. Because Earthquake was the father and Baby Quake was the son, the baby, you know. Yeah. And that's how Baby Quake came about back in those days, you know. Big sound system from Brooklyn, out of Flatbush, you know. I like to say big up to my brethren Flyer. Yeah, man. Culture Poppy, the original singer, you know. A long time I do them thing. Yeah. Jaime was basically into the sound thing. Basically like hooking up the sound system, because he's a great technician, you know. Musical engineer. He knows how to hook up the sound to give it the best quality, the best sound and everything. That's when Jaime first started stringing up the sound. And then he started getting to the DJ thing. But when I first heard him DJ, I said, yo, you can't DJ, man, you need to do some more DJing, man. And then I heard him do it in Spanish. First I ever hear a man from Panama come and they start chanting on a reggae beat in Spanish. That's the first I heard that, you know. And it sounded good. I didn't understand what he was saying, but it sounded good. All I know it sounded good. Yeah? And that was the start of the first I ever hear of it. You know what I'm saying? He was the first person before El General and all those guys and all those new guys that you're hearing today. He was one of the first ones that really started the reggaeton on the reggae rhythm and speaking Spanish. Jaime. They used to call him Ringo. Yeah, man, that was his stage name. Yeah. Back in those days, we were playing with turntables. Nowadays, you know, everybody play with CDs, but back in those days, we used to play with big turntables. We had the big sponge on it with the mixer, and a DJ would come on the microphone and chat a piece, and then a singer would come in and start singing. You know, they used to use big boxes, speaker boxes, big amps. I mean, crazy, man, crazy. You know what I'm saying? Enough equipment with wires and all kind of things, you know? It's kind of modern today. They're using CD. Only thing you have to do is use a laptop and just play. But we used to play with a lot of vinyl. Back in those days, we never hear nothing about CD. We never know nothing about CD. They're just pure vinyl, you know? Big up all the people from Mexico, people from Panama, people from Puerto Rico. And big up because, you know, you carry the music a certain way and you carry it to a different level, man. And I, man, respect you for that, man. Enough respect, see?
My name is Bettina Schein. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've been practicing for the past 24 years. I met Jaime Davidson at the federal penitentiary in Lewisburg, where I was visiting a client of mine who was involved in a number of financial frauds. He asked me if I would take the time to meet Mr. Davidson, who was pursuing a number of appeals for his own case, pro se, on his own. I met with him. He gave me a thumbnail sketch of what was going on in his case, and this was all post-conviction, post-appeal petitions which he was bringing. And I agreed, after hearing about his case and where things were, that I would help him. He was in the appellate courts on a collateral review petition. And that's how I met Jaime Davidson. Well, his case, it's quite a long story, and I'll start at the beginning. There was a tragic shooting of a police officer in Syracuse, New York on October 30th in the year 1990. And that occurred during an undercover, what was to be an undercover drug buy and bust that was set up by the New York State Drug Enforcement Task Force to arrest men who were involved in, thought to be involved in drug dealing. During that undercover sting operation, shots were fired, and this officer, Howard, was killed in the line of duty. It was a terrible tragedy, and the city sought to immediately find and convict those who were responsible for this tragic occurrence. And what had happened then was the men who were present there, these two young men, a 19-year-old, were immediately arrested. One of the men was shot during the course of the shootings. He was shot in the back and brought to the emergency room. Tremendous pressure was brought to bear upon these men to confess and to also implicate others who were involved in them. A state trial was held. The men were convicted in state court, and then some months later, a federal investigation, which was ongoing, was continued, and these men were interviewed and pressured to testify and to link others with them. During the course of the federal investigation, these men were told that the federal government would ask for the death penalty during the penalty phase of the case they were going to bring. As it turns out, Jaime Davidson's name came up in the context of the case, and the law enforcement officers pressured the men to place Jaime Davidson in the apartment where the men met prior to the undercover drug deal that turned bad. And what happened then was the federal government brought a case, a racketeering case, which also charged the murder of the police officer and drug dealing. They brought this case in Syracuse. The men who were present and involved in the drug deal and in the shooting incident testified against Jaime Davidson, as did another man who was a government informant. He testified against Mr. Davidson, and one of the former girlfriends of one of the men convicted of the shooting of the officer also testified. They placed Mr. Davidson at the girlfriend's apartment on the morning of that day of this tragic occurrence. At the end of the trial, although none of these witnesses testified that Mr. Davidson was present at the drug deal, the judge gave what's called a Pinkerton charge, which tells the jury that you may convict even if a person isn't present or didn't plan a murder, if a murder occurs in the course of a drug deal and it is reasonably foreseeable that that murder could occur. And that was the basis for the conviction of Jaime Davidson in the murder of the police officer. Now, Mr. Davidson at sentencing received 3 life terms without parole, and he's currently serving his sentence in various federal penitentiaries throughout the country. Now, if we fast forward, and I say that in order to tell the details of Mr. Davidson's case in a more concise manner, we fast forward 10 years hence. The witnesses who originally testified against Mr. Davidson, who are serving their sentences, have almost all recanted their testimony. And as they explained in affidavits in which they recanted, took back their testimony, they said that there was such pressure put on them to testify against Mr. Davidson that they succumbed to the coercive pressure that was put upon them, and they lied. They told the story that the prosecutor and the police officers insisted they tell. And each one has now recanted their testimony, and even the former girlfriend of one of the men convicted of the shooting, she has recanted. She said that she was so frightened for her boyfriend, who was charged with the shooting of the officer, that she lied during trial and told the story that the government asked her to tell. And that was that Mr. Davidson was present in her home on that morning. Now, at the trial, apart from those witnesses testifying, Mr. Davidson put on defense witnesses, his family members, and his family members are all fine, upstanding members of their community. They live in Brooklyn. One of his family members, a nurse for many years, testified that Mr. Davidson was in Brooklyn the night before and that day that the shooting took place, and not in upstate Syracuse, New York. His brother, who is a very highly decorated Army sergeant in the United States Army, who is stationed overseas now, he also testified that his brother was in Brooklyn the night before and the morning of this tragic event. So Mr. Davidson had his family members, each one a reputable, highly thought of member of their community, testify in his defense. And notwithstanding their testimony, he was convicted by this jury in Syracuse. So now what we have witnesses who have recanted, who were involved in the drug deal and the terrible shooting that occurred afterwards, or during rather, and we have a petition now. It is a post-conviction collateral petition to the court to permit us to put on all the evidence to show that Mr. Davidson was not present in Syracuse on October 30th, 1999, or the day before, and had no involvement whatsoever with this terrible course of events and drug deal which went bad. And what we're asking the district court to do is permit us to put all this evidence on through witnesses' testimony to show that Mr. Davidson is actually innocent of the crimes for which he's serving 3 life sentences, and that he should, at the very least, be entitled to a new trial on these offenses and these charges. Now it's almost 20 years have passed since the crime, and in 2004 I met Mr. Davidson at the federal penitentiary in Lewisburg, and I agreed to take on his case pro bono. That means without any fee. And I took it on. It was in the appellate stage, not in the district court, but on appeal in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals here in New York City, where my office is. And it was a post-conviction motion, and we were seeking a reconsideration of the denial of his post-verdict motion, which he had brought pro se. And I prepared a motion, and I submitted it to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals granted our motion and said, yes, Mr. Davidson is entitled to have all his claims heard in a plenary hearing in the district court and remanded his case back to the district court. This was in 2005, and since that time, and I have been representing him pro bono without any fees, but since that time, in order to present all this evidence in a hearing in the district court will take many, many months to prepare. And because this is his probably his last appeal that he can properly bring on newly discovered evidence, everything that's newly discovered, even if it's over the course of 5 or 10 years, must be put forward in the hearing. It all must be presented, because really this is probably his last chance. So at this point, Mr. Davidson is seeking a legal defense fund of, at a minimum, $50,000 to enable us to hire investigators and to go to the different jails where the people are incarcerated who have recanted, to obtain their new testimony, and to find other witnesses who testified at the trial who are not incarcerated, and to get their statements and to properly prepare the legal documents necessary to present all the evidence in the district court, which can and we hope will prove that Jaime Davidson is actually and factually innocent of the charges for which he's serving 3 life sentences. Well, it has happened, certainly, and some of you people may have heard of a play that's called The Exonerated, that in which stories are told of cases in which people on death row have been exonerated due to newly discovered evidence properly and diligently presented to a district court extensively and substantially to substantiate the petitioner's claim of actual innocence. So there have been incidents, although they're few and far between. There have been a number of incidents, and a number of cases here in New York as well, maybe as many as I can count on one hand, where people who were facing the death penalty or life without parole have been granted new trials, or the charges were dismissed, and after 20 years or more, they've been released from jail and they are able to begin to reclaim their lives as free men.